Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky, and you have tuned into Joe on Joe. This is the podcast where, over the years, I have covered every episode of the G.I. Joe cartoon. We've covered the Sunbow series, the DIC series. We've even touched on Extreme! And I have worked my way through all of the regular issues of G.I. Joe Real American Hero. This is in my Joe on Joe Illustrated segments, of which today is one. And now I am trickling my way through the remaining special missions issues. So, it's exciting because I should have done this years ago when they were running concurrent with the issues, the regular issues of Real American Hero that I was reviewing, because at a certain point it's going to make more sense. But I didn't, and so I'm playing catch up now. So if you're a new listener, welcome aboard. Look back into the catalog. This is a listen along, read along podcast designed to be in your ear when you're reading these comics, or in your ear when you're watching the cartoon. That's what the show has always been about. That's what I try to keep most episodes about. Except, of course, when we do our spectacular You on Joe episodes. And today is sort of a You on Joe, but it's me on Joe, because we're also going to be talking about my experience at the San Diego Comic-Con. So before we get into that, thank you all for listening. You can find me on social media at Joe on Joe Pod. It's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Send me an email to joeandjoepod@gmail.com. Say hello. Say if you're a fan of the show. Say if you want to be a guest on the show. I love having listeners, especially new listeners, join. It's super easy. We get on Zoom and we talk about your favorite thing, my favorite thing, G.I. Joe. And we have a lot of fun. So shoot me a note. And if you want to help support the show, please go check out our Patreon, patreon.com/joeandjoepod, and help keep the show float that way. Yeah, today we're talking about G.I. Joe Special Missions. We're going to do a Joe and Joe Illustrated, which is page by page, panel by panel, in excruciating detail. And it's a great issue, first of all. It's absolutely fantastic. But before we drop into that, we're going to talk a little bit about San Diego, because in good podcaster habits or smart podcaster marketing, I talked in length about this on someone else's show. I have regularly asked to, maybe once every month or once every couple months, asked to be a guest host over on our friends What's on Joe Mind, the podcast, with Mike Irizarry and Racktime Rob. And they asked me to step in and do a guest host. Basically, my role there is to just be a buffoon and make people laugh and stuff. Talk G.I. Joe stuff and throw out G.I. Joe opinions, certainly. But it's such an enjoyable time. Mike runs such a fun show. Really great listeners. They do it live in the chat, too, which is really great. Something I don't do here. So you get some real-time conversations with listeners. That's a lot of fun. I see a lot of Joe and Joe listeners in the chat. We're watching all of it. Thank you all so much. Appreciate the kind words. And it's always a blast. So one, if you've never listened to What's on Joe Mind, you need to go seek out that podcast if you like G.I. Joe talk. They're definitely more G.I. Joe talk than me, like G.I. Joe heavy. They get into current stuff. They get into shows. They talk about upcoming shows and everything. They talk about, breaking news. I don't really do that on the show. That's not what this show is. And never what the show's ever really been. So I'm really no good in that. But it's great. And they're fun, and they're very funny. And they got a ton of old running gags. And one of my favorite bits is that I never listen to their show. So I never know what's going on. And for the record, I do sometimes listen, but, it's funnier for me to have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. So I respect them so much, and we have so much fun there. So I was on that show this week, and I bring that up. They asked me to guest last week, and since Comic-Con, the first week I got back, I was super exhausted, so I couldn't get a show out about it. And then the next week I was going to do it, and then I got super busy personal life stuff, so I couldn't get a show out. So the first time I talked about all this was on their show. So we talked about this in length last week. If you want to hear the full conversation, I always recommend anyone going over there and listen to What's on Joe Mind. They're on YouTube and in podcatchers and things like that. But I'll give you the high points. Certainly the highest point was Cold Slither, the concert. It was absolutely amazing. Kudos Hasbro and RPM Records, who just like killed it. Like, you guys absolutely did an A+ numero uno job. Wonderful production, wonderful execution. Like, no notes. Like, it was an absolute dynamite show. The guys who played Cold Slither, which of course now, 1 second, let me grab my record album. The Cold Slither themselves Cold Slither was amazing. They put out, in case you're listening at this point, you haven't heard, you don't understand what we're talking about. You know, they put together a real live rock and roll band of actual musicians, talented dudes from other bands, like from real talented people. And they put them in cosplay, basically, as Zartan and the Dreadnoks in Cold Slither. And these guys knew the assignment. They 100% showed up for it. They were doing the accents. They were 100% rocking the garb. They were in character the whole time. It's dynamite. So let me get this out of the way. We got Gus Rios played Zartan. Matt Harvey was Ripper. Ross Sewage, what a great name, was Torch. And Andy Selway was Buzzer. They killed it. So basically Thursday night, San Diego opens on a Wednesday. It's a kind of like preview night. And then Thursday night, they had an off-site concert, live concert of Cold Slither at this local metal bar. And it was a real metal bar. Like, I think that's one of my favorite things about this. They didn't screw around. Like, this wasn't done in a, like in the lobby of the Marriott. They went to a legit, 15-minute drive away metal bar. 100%. That place has seen some stuff, and that's where we saw Cold Slither. Like, you could not have chosen a better bar. So RPM, if you're listening, amazing. By the way, shout out to Evelyn at the RPM booth. Michael Nye and I were there early. She was filling us in on what the schedule was, when exclusives were dropping and everything. And I remember your name, Evelyn, because that's both of my grandmother's names, and it's so old school. So if you happen to hear this, we appreciated you. You were very helpful in getting us information. And the show was great. Like, it was a full house. There was a ton of G.I. Joe fans there. The back of the house had souvenir, like merch tables, stuff, records and things like that. Because they have put out, if you're listening and don't know this, there is a full vinyl LP that I'm holding in my hands that they were selling. I have I don't know if all of them are limited, but I have the Cobra Blood Moon red and black vinyl, red and black marble vinyl, limited to 500 copies that I got at the show. I know you can go to the RPM website and buy it. I also have the CD they put out. It's a fun album. There's really catchy songs on it. It's more than just Cold Slither. There's 11 songs in this whole album. Cold Slither's just one of them. And merch table in the back. They had a full functional, full bar. So we, have your drinks, and then at the front was the stage, and in the back of the house near like restrooms and stuff, they had Cold Slither and Gem and the Holograms concert posters stapled to the walls, like you would see at a regular concert. Like, you know what I mean? They went to that level of verisimilitude with it. And show started. Oh, their roadie, their tech, was dressed up as Monkey Wrench. So he was literally in the pre-show setup when he was actually doing his normal job setting up a concert. It was Monkey Wrench out there working on the thing, which was fantastic. Then they came out full gear, and they had fun quips in between the songs, like prearranged, like Cobra-esque, dreadnocky jokes. Torch had brought out a keytar at one point. He had chocolate donuts. I didn't know if they might have had, I'm assuming somewhere grape soda was involved, but I definitely saw the chocolate donuts. they had a really, and actually on the Hasbro side, or whoever produced this one, there was a video, an accompanying video of it, and I think some of it was the promo video for the Cold Slither toy that Hasbro was selling, but the video was synced, with the song, so everything made sense, and they would play little interstitials as the band, regathered themselves in between tracks. It was a concert. It was great. It was loud. We lost our voice. You had ringing in your ears. Like it was a legit concert, and it was so much fun. I was so lucky, so happy to be there. I do want huge shout outs to two people. I want to shout out Marie Navarro. Marie, if you're listening, this is from the Hasbro side. Thank you so much. What a great hookup. And more than that, Rod Kim, you're the one who connected me. Guys, if you're, I know that my G.I. Joe audience has their finger on the pulse of young music. I just know that you do. Listen, if there's one thing when Toilet Teal asks me, what's your audience like besides G.I. Joe? The first thing out of my mouth is hip, young music listeners. That's what we are. But my friend Rod Kim, who is a dynamite person, like as a human being, so positive, so friendly, such a good dude. He's a major TikTok influencer, and it's crazy because he's blown up in like during COVID, I think it started, last couple of years, to like millions of views on his videos. Like if you Google Rod Kim Rocks, at Rod Kim Rocks, that's his TikTok thing. The latest posts from Rod are like 4.5. Oh, okay, well those are K. Okay, well listen, I know he's got millions of views. He's a talented dude, and he mostly he does music stuff. So Hasbro reached out to him, and he was like, "Well, I'm not going to be there, but I got a guy." And so Rod hooked me up. And Rod, thank you immensely for that connection. Listeners, if you go shout him out, follow him on TikTok. He's a very fun dude, really knowledgeable about music, actually. And we had a great time. We were there with some Joe Bros. We saw Michael Charles Hill. He was in the house. Celebrate him. I saw him later on in the show too, on the floor on, was it Saturday? He was signing print over at a comic book shop booth with Jamie Sullivan. They were doing Cold Slither prints. But the show was amazing. It was great. You check out my Instagram. I put a bunch of stuff in stories and reels. I actually have even more on my phone. I just need to get around and start putting them up. Maybe I'll do that this weekend. So much fun. Then over on the Hasbro side, the toy stuff was great. It was they weren't in the lottery system for San Diego, if you're familiar with it. Some companies sign up and you basically have to win a lottery ticket in order to be able to buy their merchandise, mostly for the exclusives. This year, the biggest one was a Mattel booth with a Jaws and Back to the Future Hot Wheels toys separately, but 2 Hot Wheel sets. And those were the absolute toy to get this show. But Hasbro this year, they brought so many Cold Slithers. You could have bought 5 of them. I left that show because I was buying for a bunch of friends, a bunch of people back home in LA. I left that show. I believe I had 7 Slithers in my trunk, and they're not all for me remotely. I've passed them all out to everyone that wanted one. So it was easy to get the Slither set, relatively easy, but you had to get there early. But the booth was running well. They had a nice setup. Most importantly, they had a really nice setup of the Snowcat for the HasLab that's ending very soon. It looks awesome. I know there's been a lot of consternation online about the Snowcat, and it's not blowing up like the Rattler. We actually got into a lot of this talk on What's on Joe Mind, so I won't go into that here. Tune in there. I actually have some theories on why and all that stuff. We all do, not saying mine are the right ones, but we talk about a lot there. But they had it there, the Snowcat, and it looked great. I love it. I'm backing it. I think everyone should. Let's get it up. Let's get that Flint in the snow. I really want the bivouac, but let's get it all the way to the Flint in the snow. I don't know if we'll get there, but as of this recording. So that was great. That booth was great. RPM, they were selling the albums, they were selling t-shirts, they were selling limited poster prints. I neglected to get the poster print because it was large, and I was like, I know there's no room at my house, but I did swipe one of those promo posters from the concert. So there weren't that many. There were probably maybe 20, 30 on the wall, and everyone started grabbing them. So I have one gem one, and I have one Cold Slither one. I'm happy with those. I've got those framed up. I'm going to get them hung up this week. it was great. So that was that was all Wednesday was the excitement. Thursday was the show. Friday, those the band came to the show floor and they did a signing at the RPM booth, where everyone got to take pictures and stuff with them. And then it was great because then you get all that out of your system and your Cold Slither commitment was done for the weekend. And then we could all just focus on other Comic-Con things, all the other comic book stuff that we're into. And personally, I ended up getting a couple cool G.I. Joe things. I went ham on a vendor's carded Battle Core era Joes. He had a ton of them. And I was so swept up in the Joe-ness of it. I just grabbed all of them off the rack. Because I am a sucker for like a carded G.I. Joe figure. I am just an absolute sucker for it. I don't pay a ton of money for them. I'm not saying it's that, but it's just, I love the way they look. So I was able to get stuff like Barricade and Battle Core Law and the Crimson Guard Commander, I think, and a couple other dudes are out of my sight right now. One of the cool ones I got that I'm pretty happy about. The one is Duke. I think it's V3. It's the one where he's got the crotch rocket missile launcher. It's a good looking Duke, and I never had him in my collection. But it's loose. But I got a ambush from the Dino Hunters ambush, so that's exciting. He does not have his net. I don't know if Dino Hunters came with the net, but he's in good shape. He's also, they threw in some extra guns from that set too. So I think it's the guns that were supposed to go with the other guy that was in the Dino Hunter set. Blanky on the name now, but I got an ambush, Dino Hunter ambush, which is neat. That was something that was always, it's late stage and a rarity, so it's always a little bit pricier. So I did a bunch of that Joe stuff, and then I was able to find the Tim Seeley 2003, I think it's 2003 convention sketchbook for relatively reasonable rate, which normally I've seen those for like $100 and certainly did not pay that for it. And the Valor Venom one shot, which strangely is a harder one to find, it's neat. Not neat, but when I go to G.I. Joe shows, if I have a pretty solid Joe comic collection, like literally maybe under 10 random bits of ephemera, certainly nothing, I have everything mainstream, but it's those random stuff. And so there were a lot of vendors there with big G.I. Joe sections, which was awesome to see because that wasn't the case a few years ago. But you always go through them. So even if there's stuff that you have, it's always worth flipping through. This little note to you, for all you young collectors out there. It's always worth flipping through boxes like that if there's some random ephemera, even though you're like, well, I know I don't need the main series. Why should I flip through a box that says it's the main series? Because they misfile stuff a lot. Or they properly file it, but it's just, it's mixed in with the regular books. Specifically, I'm thinking about all the toy add-in comic books. They were like 23.1 or whatever, or 0.5 or whatever those fill-in issues that were printed with the action figures. They'll slot those into the regular series, or they'll have that G.I. Joe versus Cobra, which was the fanzine one or whatever that was called. They'll have those randomly at the end of it, or sometimes they will have the fan magazine, slid in there. You never know which vendor has what random stuff. So it's always worth spending a couple of minutes to check through those, even if it is just stuff you already have. So I was able to do that, filled in a couple holes there. And so it was a good Joe-tastic Comic-Con. So listeners, I hope you guys supported the Cold Slither stuff. I hope you'll check it out at least. And honestly, the music's fun. Like it's a good album. They did a good job putting this together. It's all very Cobra centric songs, so that's kind of a hoot. Knock 'em Dread's pretty fun. Thunder Machine's good. Like, and their Cold Slither sounds amazing. It's solid. Literally, absolute excellent execution. So anyone who's listening, thank you so much for doing that for us. People at RPM, people at Hasbro. Most importantly, Michael Charles Hill for writing Cold Slither 40 years ago now, 35 years ago. And really just a fun idea that has now, it's kind of hit its apex, So I think it's put it to sleep for a little while, but it was a fun apex to hit. Like, it was absolutely great. So, and that's also why I ran that rerun when I was away, when I went to cons, why I ran the Cold Slither episode on this show, because I figured it was going to get some eyeballs on it, ears on it rather. And some of you may not have heard it in a little while, so I figured let's bring it out from the archives. But that'll probably be the last time I run it for a good long while. But celebrate Cold Slither. It was so much fun, and get that toy set. That toy set's an absolute hoot. And they also did like Super 7, did a bunch of variants. They released a for the Super 7 style, like 3 3/4 Zartan one they did. There's like different decos of Zartan with 45s of the Cold Slither vinyl. So those also came out too, that they were available that week. So various things you could have gotten, but this is all, at this point it's, 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 1, 2, 3, 3 weeks ago. Anyway, a lot of fun, great trip, good times, good friends, good people. And now on to G.I. Joe Special Missions. What? Such a fun cover. Mike Zeck cover with, let's see, it's Leatherneck, Crankcase, Stalker, hanging out of a nondescript blue panel van, shooting random people in the face. It's, I'll say that it's not like it's not the most classic, like, well-balanced cover kind of a situation. It's not like iconic in that regard, but it kind of says everything you need to know about this comic book. It is a small group of dudes in a non-G.I. Joe van. Oh, and new listeners, if you've never heard me do the illustrated, this is kind of what I do. We look at a page and we break it down, like the ideas behind it, so it's not so much of a review show as it is like, what were they doing with this page kind of a show. So this really gets across everything you want about what's in the contents of this book. It's regular Joes, or G.I. Joes in a regular car fighting non-Cobra people. So that tells you a lot about what could be in the inside. You don't necessarily know that they're in the Middle East, or, what reasons, why they're in the, you don't know anything about that. You just need to know that, they're in some stuff, and it's not your normal Joe versus Cobra. And it's also, they're on their own. They're on, they're loose on this mission. So I think it's a fun cover. I think these are the kind of covers that sell books, quite frankly. There's not much background there, but I don't think there needs to be. Orange, they did like an orange yellow gradient tint on it, and then nicely balanced with the bad guys in the forefront. They're just all like dark orange hues, which then when you put full color on the van and stuff, it makes the van pop really well. So it's called Burnout, written by Larry Hama and Herb Trimpe, artist. Herb's work in this issue is fantastic. This isn't a show where I slag on things, but certainly not happening today, because it's really, really great. Bob Sharon's the colorist. Phil Felix is the letterer. Bob Harris is the editor, and Jim Shooter is the editor-in-chief. I will say this, and I don't know this part. I don't know what the printing process was at the time. Like, I don't know the name for it, and that's, that would be for better minds than me to understand. But I don't like it. I don't like the way this book is printed. I think, and it's nothing to do with the production people. I think it's the lettering is garbled. The colors are weird. They're spotty, and at least, my copy of it, it's spotty in a lot of areas. Maybe someone has a really, really great mint. I mean, my copy is mint, as far as the comic books go. But maybe my print, the printing, maybe these pages were towards the end of it or something. I don't know. But I'm not a huge fan of this look per se. And I say that as someone who loves newsprint. I love newsprint comics. I think they can be done better than what we're looking at here, but I don't think it's the fault of any of the people that we just read. I think it's more of the process, because it seems like some things are out of register, and et cetera, and so on and so forth. So that's just an overall oof that I felt when I was going through it. But somewhere in the strife-torn Middle East. So we're in the Middle East. We don't really know where. We don't need to know where. There's a bunch of non-GI Joe, nondescript, but military tanks driving down the street with with a lot of soldiers, in turbans and stuff, hanging out on top of it, right? So we know that we're dealing with kind of a not regular military situation, but a lot of locals, a lot of what you find in the Middle East still to this day. People riding on tanks and just generally brandishing weapons. And right in the middle of it, there are four dudes having tea or coffee, or actually rather black currant juice. You can't tell who it is exactly from this distance, but they're talking to the owner and they're like, yeah, let's have another cup. And he's like, are you nuts? The sun's about to go down. It's going to get crazy out here. And they don't really care. And he does say to them, you fly jet fighters for Colonel Sharif. If the royalists catch you, they'll kill you. So we don't exactly know who he's talking to or what have you. But on the next page, we learn that there's a dude named Deke. Deke. Not Duke, but Deke. And he is a new character. He is a pilot. And Deke is hanging out with Slipstream, Leatherneck, and Stalker. Stalker, by the way, in his mufti garb, like in his disguise in mufti, from doing a callback all the way to issue 2? Or was issue 1 Hot Potato? Or 2? Issue 1 was Hot Potato. Yeah, literally dressed like he was then with the turban on and everything. I can't say that Leatherneck and Slipstream are trying to blend in, but that's okay. And it's funny to say that because Deke says something to Slipstream, like, what do you know about cover? You've got fighter jock written all over you. Since when do they send expensive jet drivers on a ground pounder sneak and peek? So that tells us that these guys are there for something on the ground. And so why is Slipstream with us? We don't really know yet. And we won't as the story unfolds. And Deke is a kind of a loose cannon here. He's toasting him. He's drinking on the job, looks like, well, no, that would be do they do? Who knows? I don't know if it's a Muslim country. I don't know if they actually have alcohol, but it appears that he's drinking. It appears that he's got like a pint in his hand of something. He's smoking a cigarette. And he pulls out these topographical maps, and we see that he shows the Joes where all these anti-aircraft batteries are in a nearby airfield. And while he's doing that, the owner of the shop overhears all this and rats all of them out to the security police force. And the Joes warn him, like, hey, thanks for this information, but you should, chill out, dude. Like, don't get in the mix with us. We got our own job. Meanwhile, later, at the aforementioned Colonel Sharif's office, which we've met him before, and I apologize for my brain not placing exactly where, but we've met Sharif before. It could have been, was it during the hot potato stuff? Anyway, but, or maybe it's just someone else named Sharif. Okay, anyway, thinking out loud. Basically, the guy that the bar owner called is telling Sharif that there's the Americans are there. They may be planning retaliation for his support and aid of terrorist factions. And he says, I don't support terrorists. I give aid to freedom fighters. It's all a matter of perspective, etc. And he says, go arrest the spies and shoot them too. Meanwhile, the guys are heading back to their hideout, which is like a garage, a few blocks away. Another, in quote, another part of town. Great storytelling here from Trimpy as far as keeping us grounded in a strange land. Like he knows where. We get 3 panels of Sharif kind of getting told what's up. We get an establishing shot and over the shoulder with that lieutenant telling what's up. And then we have a close-up of Sharif, really great facial acting, finger pointing, like making his point made. And that's just the top 3 panels. Like we don't need a full page for this, but we need a full row. And then we get a nice full row splash shot of this part of town. We don't know where it is, but there's bombed out buildings. There's a car that actually looks running, but it's not a classy car. Streets, garbage in the streets, etc. So they're in a bad part of town. and the guys are walking. Then we get a nice mid shot, and what's cool is it's a mid shot of Stalker, and I believe he's talking to Leatherneck, and that's he's talking to Slipstream, and Leatherneck, who's in the Leatherneck's in the vest, right? It's weird. Some of the coloring changes. Like at one point on the previous page, he's talking to Slipstream, but they call him Leatherneck, so I don't know if they colored it either way. Either way, you see the other Joe that is like he went to the effort of drawing his arm in the panel, and what that does is that gives you a sense of centering and grounding and keeping track of where all the guys are. Like because it is just a scene between the two of them. You don't need to have the third person in this scene because it is just Stalker talking. It's Leatherneck. Stalker talking to Leatherneck, right? But by including Slipstream's arm, it really does position where everybody's at in space. And then you go to the next panel, which has more traditional backgrounds, and then it really centers them. And so it's just this constant, like, keep you on your toes of giving you location, then nothing, then location, then nothing, then the camera moves, and you're still seeing in relation how they are to you. And what that does is it builds in your brain this sense of world that didn't exist before you opened and got to page 3. And inside this garage, we've got Crankcase, and he's working on a van. And I'll just say this whole van bit it's all A-Team. It's totally A-Team. They are putting an A-Team style van together. You know, like when they go to another country and they load up machine guns on a van and they put, Kevlar panels on the van to protect them. That's what's going on in the first half of this comic book. It's awesome. I love me some A-Team. And we get right to it. Storytelling wise, Larry doesn't waste time. On the next page here, it's many hours later, but Deke, our buddy Deke, has a busted eye, busted nose, it looks like, missing some teeth. He's been worked over by the security force, and he will not tell them where the Americans are hiding. And they bring in Abdul the Butcher, and I am practicing to be boxer. I make your head move like speed bag, no? That joke, laugh? And he's just pounding on Deke's face. And it's not going well. In a creepy, what a great decision here. In this middle panel, Sharif pulls out just a regular screwdriver. It's nothing crazy. It's not like this intricate torture tool. It is a screwdriver. And in the next panel, Trimpy puts the camera behind the screwdriver in front of Deke's face, pointed towards his eye. And, Sharif had said, I wonder how will you fly your beloved airplanes with no eyes, huh? And that's the threat that gets Deke to actually tell them where the guys are. Because he doesn't want to lose his ability to see. So it's like he rats him out, but he doesn't want to. You don't dislike Deke per se. It's a man who hit his breaking point. And then Abdul gets sent off to go track down the guys at the garage. And then he's going to tell him even more. Sharif's going to get even more out of him. But like, I love this 2-panel sequence, and it's because it's menacing. It's a screwdriver. It is a screwdriver in the eye. We all understand how that would not be great. Meanwhile, back at the garage, it's the Joes pulling their A-Team, pulling their B.A. Baracus, and we see Stalker talking to Ace, and Ace is apparently flying overhead. And he, because earlier we had seen the map, right? So all these missile sites, so we assume that they're going to be knocking them out or something. So we get Ace in a well-rendered version of his uniform. I think this looks really good. He's approaching the coordinates. He gets told where all the SAMs are. So they think they know where all the SAMs are. Is the whole point of this? We're going to find out later that there was one anti-aircraft emplacement that Deke didn't even know about, and so that's going to fuel his story as we get through the pages here. And it's a nice half, about a quarter page spread here of them ATing the van. Crankcase talks about he replaced the engine. They're installing these Kevlar plates. They're making this, what does he say? She's built for traction, not for speed. They're making this bus, like this minivan kind of a thing, as armored as possible, because they know this is what they're going to be using to do their mission, which we don't exactly know what it is yet. And Stalker says here, the mission is really a prearranged target of opportunity, which Crankcase says that's a contradiction in terms. And Stalker replies with, that's what they say about military intelligence, which is awesome. And, we love when Larry makes commentary about the military, about Air Force, about American exceptionalism, call it what you will, through the voices of these soldiers on the ground, because it makes those statements ring more true than just a non-combatant sitting on the sidelines, making a comment about how the country's run or about how the military's run. Like, these are dudes in the middle of it, who Larry certainly wasn't, he went through it himself, and they all have their opinions, but they're informed opinions on how it is. And he's always brought that to G.I. Joe, and I think that's always a real key part to why we love it, is that it's from the bottom up, not necessarily from the top down, which I appreciate. We then get a little shot of the Sky Striker. So we go back to Ace up in the Sky Striker, and this is really neat. So Ace is talking to, what we're going to find out later, he's talking to like a whole fleet of other planes. But he says, stand by for course change and radar avoidance procedures. We don't exactly know who he's talking to yet, but when we get to it, I really enjoyed it. So now we're back with Sharif and Deke, and he's got his confession all written out, and he's like, you're going to sign it now. And, in order to sign it, he's got to free his hands, right? His hands have been bound by a rope. So he's got this pen, and this is when Sharif tells him that there was a SAM site that was never revealed to all these American mercenary pilots. Because it's a part I forgot to explain. There's a bunch of American mercenary pilots that are flying for this country. They're not flying against the U.S. by any stretch of the imagination, but they're flying like old Russian planes, old Russian MiGs. They're flying them for Sharif and this crew. So the Joes came to town, and they were like, hey, Deke, we know you. Hey, buddy, can you help us? There's something that we need to do. Can you give us some inside dope? The Joes aren't here to overthrow anybody. They're not here to, they're here for something, but it ain't anything crazy. And there's a whole raft of American pilots that are not interested in shooting against other American pilots. So when he learns that there are enough missiles on that site to shoot down 3 American planes, it's too bad for your friends that you're such a weak-willed coward. And you see Deke shaking. You didn't even have the guts to keep your mouth shut. And Trimpy does that great move with the camera just zooms in, the comic book panel camera. And it's you start with a medium shot of them both. Then it's close up, and you see one eye of Sharif and one eye of Deke. And then it's even closer, and you see Deke just shaking and Sharif's gross smile. And then it snaps back. In the next page, the camera snaps back, and Deke slams the pen into Sharif's hand. The hand is not drawn, so it's not like gross. But in the previous panel, you clearly saw Sharif had his hands on the desk, so you know what happened. And then this next move is Herculean. It's like he shreds the ropes or something, because they had loosened them to get his hands out. But he breaks off the chair, boots Sharif in the face, and then somehow smashes the chair into the face of the other guard, because there was another guard there chilling. Smashes him with the chair. And what's cool is Larry's giving Deke this characterization. He's because Deke's cracking jokes. He's like, have a seat. He's like, that was so funny. Everybody forgot to laugh. Like, Deke's a little off balance. Like, he's not, he actually has a personality here, which is nice to see. And then we cut back to the garage. All the troopers have caught up to where the Joes are hiding, and they're standing outside with bullhorns, not the Joe member, on their tanks and all this stuff. They're telling them to come outside. So you get to the next page, and the Joes, again, wasting no time. It's just the door bursts open, and the A-Team van comes flying out. Crankcase is firing right away. I don't know who this young corporal dude is. He's got a little scar on his face to help identify him and to keep track of him in the story. And as the van drives through, Leatherneck lobs a little grenade into one of the personnel carriers that destroys that. But they may basically bust out and get away. And the Sharif's troops are caught a little flat-footed. So now it's a chase through the streets. So the next few pages are just it's like street chase stuff, and it's good, or at least the next pages. Driving through the streets, they take the time to do backgrounds, buildings, civilians, watching in horror, fruit carts getting knocked over. The rooftops are filled with bad guys with missile launchers. Look, Ahmed, the soldiers of Pig Dog Sharif are chasing a van full of freedom fighters, just like that message said. And there are freedom fighters. Are they our freedom fighters? They don't look familiar. Who cares? As long as we get to shoot at Sharif's lackeys, because they're in the middle of a civil war here going on or something. That's what's happening here. So those tanks get taken out actually by these mercenaries, freedom fighters. And turns out that Stalker called ahead to warn them about it. So, Stalker made moves behind the scenes that we didn't, so it's everything's moving. It's great. And that's what's usually happens in these. There's layers on layers. And the more you pay attention, the more you see, oh, that guy knew that guy. And, they set up this extraction, etc. Things like that. Now we cut to Deke, who's trying to make his way out of this police headquarters. He steals a motorcycle, shoots his way through. It's very Great Escape style. Absolutely great. Very Great Escape style. He busts through the door. Sharif's yelling for guards. He's got his hand all mangled. And we assume that Deke's on it, making his way to warn the Joes about this extra salmon placement. The Joes are driving through town. They're 3 minutes late, according to Stalker's watch. There's an air raid alert going on, so now locals are basically everything's up in air. So looking for them is going to be the last thing. That's what they're saying here. Looking for them driving down the street really fast is kind of not what they're concerned about, because with an air raid, that means there's some stuff coming in from the sky. In this case, we know it's Sky Striker and those guys. So they've got other things to worry about than a van driving down the street. But they head towards this airfield. A nice, really nice kind of, it's not super detailed, but it's this last panel is, because it's at night, so there's a lot of blacks, and Trimpe uses just shapes to really define what this airfield would look like to us, and we understand what it is. Not a lot of detail at all. It's a lot of heavy shadows in it. But we see that there's this long road hanging up to it. There's a crossroad. There's the lights in the distance, so we know that's the airfield. There's a bunch of low buildings where all the airplanes are stored, things like that. So it's great. It's really nice. And then we see, because they introduced the idea of the air siren, we now follow up and go, well, what is that? And it's Ace back up in the Sky Striker. And we see that Ace is leading just this contingent of non-G.I. Joe planes, which is one of the things I really love about this scene. We see there's, a dozen jets of various types, not Sky Strikers. Ace is the only Sky Striker up there. They've all got bombs strapped to them. And he is Ace's cowboy leader on Open Channel. And he says, you have your targeting assignments. You will not deviate from them. Targets of opportunity will not be engaged on this mission. And I believe these are the freedom fighters, if I am understanding this correctly. So Ace is leading the freedom fighters to attack Sharif's people. We don't exactly know why all this is happening, but they show us a little map, and basically the areas in green are good, but there's a few outlying areas that are red, and the word is do not touch them because they're not part of this mission. So everyone's got to really play it cool and play it tight. We will not, let's see, it says, the Missile Suppression Group has a special readout on their threat display of all the SAM sites, courtesy of the Joe team. And in return for that, we will not engage targets in the red sector. So it's a little quid pro quo. You get to blow some stuff up, but don't touch the other stuff. And that's the arrangement they made with these guys. And so then the planes kind of veer off and go to business, which the final panel of the planes here, really cool, really great place to put the camera. It's picture like 6 or so planes banking away from you so that you see their underside. They're in shadow, but it's like they're going, if they're moving left to right, they're then also banking away towards the ground. And so you just see their underbellies, and it just tells you everything as you lead into the next page, brings your eyes across the page, brings you into the story, into what's happening on the top of the next page, and also sends them down into their mission, which is what they're setting up. So just nice flow to the storytelling on these pages, which then is satisfied here because you see at the top of the screen very, very lightly, very small blurs of the airplanes coming in. It says, "Here come our planes. What a sight." As this is the van, this is the van heading towards the gate, and the guys are excited to see that their plane's off in the distance. But they got their own stuff. So they're having a firefight with the guys in the van. And they think, who is it? I don't know who it is. Stalker? No, Slipstream. Slipstream's like, we must be doing over 100. Listen to that whistle. But that's not the whistle of the air because they're driving so fast. It's the bombs. So the Joes are driving through the bombing field. They are bombing the area that the Joes are driving through, which is wild and fun. And you could imagine, like in a live action, how insane that would be. Normally, it's bombed that area when I've gotten out of it. The Joes are literally driving into it to finish this mission, whatever it is. Again, they come across some more dudes. They've got some rocket launchers. Finally, one hits the front of the truck and kills the engine. So they've got to get out of the A-Team van. Leatherneck bloops them with a grenade launcher and a nice little use of the toy. I always love when they get toyetic on this. On the next page 15, Sharif's screaming for the fighter pilots in the barracks, like, get out there and fight for me. And when he runs in the barracks, he says, we're being raided by the Americans. Why aren't you out there shooting them down? And they said, well, why don't you send up your homegrown fighter jocks? They can take off real good at night, because the Americans are there because they can take off and land at night. The local guys can fly, but they can't really do well at night. So that's why they need these mercenaries. And he says, I order you to scramble for fighter interception. You're being paid an exorbitant amount. But the head dude, who we don't know, never know, he says, not enough to do a dirt job like this. I resign, because he doesn't want to fight against American troops. And Sharif kills them. He says, this is the only resignation you will be allowed. I don't know how many people he killed, but he shoots at least 3 times. There's 6 dudes there, and he's holding a 6-shooter. So I'm going to assume he shot all 6 of them, because then the next panel is him driving off in his Jeep towards the end of the runway, which is to that other SAM site we were talking about. So they didn't jump him. I'm assuming he shot all 6 of them. That's crazy. And now we find out what the mission actually is. They get out of the van, and they head to this hangar. This is one of the hangars that was off limits for the bombing runs. It's a Yak-36, the latest Russian vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, their equivalent of the U.S. Harrier. And they're there to have, the reason Slipstream's here, because it's crazy. Like, you got Leatherneck, you got Stalker. Why is Slipstream with him? He's there to fly this plane out. The Joes are there to steal this plane, which is awesome. Like, we didn't need to know that, so Larry didn't spoon feed it to us. Like, these guys knew what their mission was. There's no reason to talk about it beforehand. Like, what are we going to do when we get there and steal that plane, Stalker? Like, none of that. It's just straight up, they're doing their mission. So we find out in real time, they're there to take a plane. The only problem is, Slipstream points out, this plane ain't going anywhere. They've pulled all the hydraulics for repairs. So it's actually currently not flyable. It's a functional plane, but it's currently not flyable. And so Leatherneck's like, well, we're just going to have to shoot our way out. Like, you're going to come with us then, because, what else are we going to do? Back to the skies, the jets are all on approach, and earlier I take it back, these actually do look like all Skystrikers. I swear to God, that other picture was not all Skystrikers. It was kind of fun. But these actually all look like Skystrikers in this drawing. But it's a great drawing of these planes, and they're all at a nose tilt towards the ground. Now these planes are going from right to left, which really works as you flip the page, because it attacks your eyes, Like, it's not there to carry you to the next page. It's there to shock you with, these planes are coming in at you. It's a really nice choice of that angle. Because remember, every time you draw stuff like this, when you're showing motion, and this is for all you young comic book readers and drawers out there, when drawing motion, it's your choice of how you want that motion to look. Do you want those cars, car, plane, whatever, do you want it to come out towards the reader? Do you want to go to the right? Do you want to go to the left? Do you want to go to the up? Do you want to go to the down? All those choices mean something on the page. It doesn't mean one's better than the other, But when you understand what that is doing on the page, that's when you know what you're doing with that picture. Because you may be able to draw a wonderful car, but if you don't know how to position it properly, it just looks like a nice flat drawing of a car. But if you draw it, energetically popping off the ground, going up and to the right at the end of a page, like in the bottom right corner of a page, that just brings you to the next page. And in this case, the sky strikers are coming down from the top right to the left. And that's what we want here, because it's just attacking us as we turn the page. We're getting hit with these sky strikers, or well, Sharif is, but it's just these sky strikers are pouncing on our eyeballs. So it's a very small, very nondescript panel, but what a smart choice of use of design. We get thermal imaging from Ace. They bomb a bunch of stuff, and Slipstream has a wonderful idea. He's like, "Hey man, there's some Condor, it's the Russian equivalent of the C-5A Galaxy. That's the big ordnance carrier, like the like the huge airplane that they would load up tanks on, and the Joes would airlift them on. So there's one of them that seems to have been refueled recently. So Slipstream's like, hey, let's throw the plane on that, and we'll get out of here with it," which is a wonderfully smart idea. Unfortunately, there's a ticking clock, because these one of the jet fighters says, "Hey, this is Cowboy 3. I've neutralized my primary targets. I still got a bunch of bombs left. Those secondary targets," he says, "it's right next to the red sector, but it's not in the red sector. The red sector being the hangar that the Joes were in. Can I just blow those planes up?" And Ace is like, "Yeah, go for it, man. Like, shoot it. Go for it." Having no idea that his guys are down there. We catch up with Deke now. Deke's cruising as fast as he can through this blown up battlefield. And he realizes that all those airplanes are going to get knocked out of the sky because they don't know that there's a SAM at the other end of the one-way. This is a little bit where this breaks down a little bit for me storytelling wise. They're at the airfield already. Just because that SAM is quote unquote at the end of the runway, that SAM would be active already. Like, they would have already encountered whatever that SAM's going to throw at them. The story seems to be holding that back for plot's sake, instead of, like, if Deke was going to do anything to help him, he would have had to have been there already. He would have had to have been there right when the attack came, because there's no reason that SAM site wouldn't actively be, would just allow them to blow up the thing. That's the one little hitch in the giddy up of the plot of this story. But as far as like the emotional narrative of it, it's great, because he rolls up in his motorcycle. There's one functioning MiG here, and Deke takes the plane. He's like, and he's a little kooky. He's like, "Old Deke can't let that happen. Nope, it's totally unacceptable." So he's going to go up in the plane and help the Joes. They're loading this plane. They've got the like the plane little cart loader, the kind of thing that used to be on the USS Flag. They're driving it into the C5. The flight manual's in Russian, but Slipstream figures he can figure it out. And they better hurry, because in this 3-panel sequence at the bottom, you see there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 total C5s there. The first 4 get blown up before their C5 can take off. This last panel's a little weird. It really is drawn as if that C5 goes from standing still to being in the air. I'm sorry, it doesn't. It would have just been taxiing away. It looks though like as if it went from standing still to all of a sudden being in the air. And I get it, it's suspension of disbelief and stuff, but like everything else is so real in this that when you get to that, it's really comic booky, and you're like, oh, that's weird. Especially because in the next page 20, like they're already in the air. Like they're in the air. Like there's no runway. It's like they ran out of room. If someone told me that there was they had originally thought they had an extra page or something here, or like there was a page of them kind of doing a runway takeoff something or other, I wouldn't be surprised. We also earlier I totally glossed over this. I think in my my just excitement to be talking talking G.I. Joe again. Deke, this whole time, I forgot to say, guys, Deke was, this is carried on back on page 3. Stalker explains it. Deke was a hot shot MIG waxer. I'm sorry, MIG waxer in Southeast Asia. He racked up 3 confirmed kills before he had to punch out, and then he was held as a POW. So Deke sat in a concrete hole near Hanoi for 3 years. He got a medal in a parade, but nobody wanted him to fly again. So he had psychological instability, and so he couldn't get even a commercial airline license. And so that's how he found himself as this mercenary pilot, and that's why he's a little bonkers. Like, he's a little, like, nutty, because he's been through some stuff. I apologize for not covering that. So that's kind of sets up who Deke is. Like, so he's an ex-Army, or, military, ex-U.S. military guy, Air Force or whatever he was. And he's a patriot, but he's just a little kooky. So that's why he's going above and beyond here. So the C-5's flying overhead, and this is where that SAM site comes into play. So now these missiles come out of nowhere. They track the C-5 and they get launched after Slipstream sees the warning light. So they're tracking them. They're going to knock these guys out of the sky. So this is a little bit where it's like, it's for convenience sake of the plot that it doesn't happen until like right now. So Slipstream's up in the air, and Deke flies right alongside him. And he's like, hey, we got company. Oh, hey, wait, it's Deke. Deke's flying wingman for him, and then the missile gets launched. And Deke... actually, it's Slipstream. Slipstream lets go of the chaff, the defensive chaff, which knocks out one of the missiles, captures it in midair. They both, Deke's jet and the C-5, they both go to left and right. And the missile gets blown away, but there's more missiles down there. And the only way they're going to get out of here is if Deke takes out that SAM embankment. So Deke says, Renegade MiG to Stray Condor. I am circling back to deal with missile threat. Keep on going and don't look back. So on the final page of the story, again, that 3-panel progression, which he's repeated now a couple times throughout the story. Remember, like the close-ups of Sharif's eye on him? He parallels that in this. So the long shot is Sharif flanked by his missiles, and in the distance is Deke's plane. And Sharif's yelling, traverse those launchers. This is a bluff. And then the launchers are moving, but he kind of is not, he loses in the next panel, the airplane's certainly closer. But his arms aren't up now. His arms are down by his side, and he's losing his bravado. And he says that MiG isn't even armed. Like it's missile racks are empty. It can't harm us unless. And then you get to the final panel, which is the close-up panel, which is your payoff panel. And he's screaming no. And right above him is Deke inside that MiG, perfectly flanked by the missiles that haven't even launched yet. And then you get a splash page, like a widescreen splash shot across the center with the MiG exploding. Sharif's hat flying right at the camera. The missiles are gone. Like he kamikazed himself to take out Sharif and save the Joes. Absolutely amazing stuff. The guys are in the cockpit. Slipstream is saluting him. He says, poor Deke, he never even knew what this was all about. And someone, probably Stalker, says, ain't that the way it always is? So Deke never even knew what mission they were on. He didn't even know why they were doing what they were doing. He just knew his buddies were going to get shot unless he did something to save himself. He doesn't know why it was important or how important it was. That wasn't his to measure. His was just there to save his friends. Really, really good. Like, wonderful. Except for that just a little hitch at the end of, I think maybe one more page of story. I think it would have been primo. But otherwise, like Trimpy's pencils in this are amazing. And the story's really great. Like, it's really layered story from Hama. Totally dig it. Absolutely so glad I've read this. I haven't read this these special missions, I'll be honest, I have not read in 25 years probably. So this is all just wonderful new finds for me. Like I don't remember this story, and it's really, really great. And so I thank you all for listening. I hope it wasn't excruciating for you. No, you guys are the best. So we'll be back probably in a couple weeks. But until then, go listen to our friends over at What's on Joe Mind. Go back the HasLab, get that, let's get that Snowcat going. Say hi on social. Just pop in and say, hey, thanks for the show. Or, hey, your show's terrible. Don't ever do it again. And go listen to Cold Slither. It's absolutely wonderful. Oh, there were two things I wanted to talk about. If you're listening all the way to the end, One is our friend Roger Taft is having a GoFundMe. He's having some health issues. Please go to GoFundMe. Look for Roger Taft. Help him get his eye all fixed up. It's he needs all the help. He needs all the help he can get. He also is. They've also got, actually, it's funny you mention that because Roger also asked me to talk about a show in Florida. It's the Central Florida Joe Show, and that's on Sunday, September 28th. It's in the center at Deltona in Deltona, Florida, wherever that is. Mark Pennington's going to be there. Sunday, September 28th. Central Florida Joe Show. Go check that out. And also, like I said, I don't normally do this. This is normally Mike Irizarry talking about upcoming shows. But I got friends who asked, so I'm not going to forget it. Even though I forgot it at the top. Our friend, the amazingly talented Jared Albrick, he's wanted to talk about a show coming up in Shepherdsville, Kentucky in January 24th at the Parquet Springs Conference Center, the G.I. Joe Winterfest. Winterfest? Yeah, Winterfest 6 at Shepherdsville, Kentucky. I'll talk about that a little more as the year goes by. But I wanted to really get out Roger Taft's GoFundMe, because go to GoFundMe, search for Roger Taft, and help him out. He's having some medical issues. I mean, just like we were helping Jamie Sullivan. He's having medical issues. Diana Davis, her sweet puppy, is having some medical issues. And gosh, I forget the puppy's name because that's what I searched for it on. But check out Diana Davis on social. You guys know her. She helps produce the G.I. Joe comic book. This last minute, just jump in. You're listening this far. You're a Joe fan. Help these guys out. Throw them a couple bucks or just share them on social media. Do whatever you can. Let's get our Joe fans and friends healthy. And now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.